Welcome to The Explainer. Now, if you're a fan of American football, you're probably already familiar with the absolute thrill of a perfectly executed trick play, right? That split-second misdirection, the sudden realization that the ball literally isn't where you thought it was, it's just electrifying. But today, we're not just looking at a clever athletic maneuver. We're going to take that familiar concept of on-field misdirection and use it to unpack a massive overarching heist narrative. We're looking at what happens when the deception moves off the grass, right up into the grandstands, and transforms the entire stadium into a massive canvas for some of the most elaborate logistical operations in sports history.
Okay, let's dive into this. The classic Statue of Liberty play is basically the ultimate sleight of hand in football. The quarterback brings one arm back to fake a huge deep pass, completely freezing the defense, while secretly handing the ball off behind his back to a running back going the exact opposite way. And we've seen absolute masters execute this perfectly. I mean, think back to the legendary 2007 Fiesta Bowl. Boise State, the massive underdog, pulled out this exact play in overtime to shock Oklahoma in literally one of college football's greatest upsets ever. The quarterback, Jared Zabransky, sold the fake throw so incredibly well that the camera operators, the defenders, the fans, everyone looked downfield. They entirely missed the running back sprinting into the end zone with the actual ball. It's a move that relies entirely on making the audience and the opposition look exactly where the action isn't. But here is where we make a really sudden pivot, because there is a massive leap from tactical field trickery to what we're calling architectural stadium warfare. We're shifting our focus completely away from the highly trained athletes on the field to the masterminds operating in the shadows of the bleachers. Because when we talk about stadium pranks, we aren't talking about a quick fake pass that takes, 5 seconds to execute? No way. We're talking about chaotic, highly organized off-field spectacles. These are massive logistical operations that require the precision of an actual military campaign, months of covert planning, and honestly, the creative audacity of an avant-garde artist.
Part 1. Architects of Stadium Chaos. So to really understand this architectural warfare, we need to get inside the mindset of the individuals actually orchestrating it. You see, they view the venue, the crowd, and the whole surrounding environment not just as a place to watch a game, but as a multi-million-dollar canvas just begging for grand disruption. A perfect example of this takes us back to the University of Wisconsin in the late 1970s. An actual political faction called the Pail and Shovel Party managed to take over the university's student government, and their entire platform, it was driven by pure, unadulterated absurdity. They laid the ideological groundwork for everything that was to come, essentially proving that a college environment, with its intense traditions, massive budgets, and serious institutions, was actually the absolute perfect stage for the completely ridiculous. And this brilliantly illustrates their crowning achievement. The Pail and Shovel Party didn't just pull a fast one in some boring student council meeting. No, they targeted the frozen expanse of Lake Mendota right next to the campus. Overnight, in the dead of a really bitter 1970s winter, they erected a massive, makeshift Statue of Liberty head and torch out of chicken wire, papier-mâché, and plywood. So when the sun finally came up, students looked out to see what literally appeared to be the iconic monument buried up to its nose in the ice. It was like a scene straight out of Planet of the Apes. They took a frozen lake and turned it into a massive installation art piece. And it was an undertaking that required freezing temperatures, heavy lifting, and total secrecy, perfectly setting the spirit and the monumental scale for the stadium warfare we're about to see. Part 2. The Laboratory of Misrule.
Now, while Wisconsin definitely showed us the spirit of the spectacle, it's the intense, historic rivalry between Harvard and Yale, simply known as the Game, that serves as the undisputed birthplace of the high-budget logistical stadium prank. Let's take a somewhat forensic look at two drastically different tactical approaches to this warfare. On one side, we have Yale. Their approach was entirely based on social engineering, using seemingly innocent fake placards as their primary weapon. And then on the other side, we have MIT, the perennial outside trolls of the Ivy League who, by the way, don't even play in the game. They utilized pure logistical sabotage, weaponizing a weather balloon and a vacuum motor. Both approaches are absolutely brilliant, but they attack the stadium infrastructure in completely different yet highly orchestrated ways.
Let's break down Yale's operation first, because this one is wild. In 2004, a group of Yale students executed an absolute masterclass in deception. They completely disguised themselves as a Harvard pep squad, complete with face paint and crimson gear, and just infiltrated the Harvard student section hours before kickoff. They handed out thousands of pieces of red and white construction paper, telling the Harvard fans that when a specific signal was given, they should hold them up to spell out "Go Harvard." It sounded like a totally classic card stunt, right? But when the signal was given and the home crowd proudly raised their cards in perfect unison, the stadium didn't see a rallying cry. Instead of team pride, the cards spelled out "We suck" in giant, unmistakable letters for literally everyone in the stadium and the national television cameras to see. And the kicker? The Harvard students held the signs up for several agonizing minutes, completely oblivious to what they were broadcasting to the world. The sheer genius of Yale's prank was capturing this very idea, turning the home crowd against itself. Think about it. It didn't require them to sneak a massive mechanical device past security. They didn't have to physically alter the field or hack into the digital scoreboard. Instead, they just hijacked the psychology of the opposing audience. They used the enemy's own school spirit, their eager desire to participate in a grand tradition, and their blind trust in anyone wearing a Pet Squad t-shirt as the very mechanism for their massive, highly public humiliation. It's just brilliant.
Now, contrast that psychological hijacking with the sheer mechanical audacity of MIT back in 1982. First, a fraternity of MIT engineering students had to infiltrate the actual stadium turf, completely undetected. Next, they dug deep into the sod and planted a giant weather balloon with MIT written all over it, burying it underground and hardwiring it to a vacuum cleaner motor, acting as a high-powered compressor. And finally, and this is perhaps the most insane part, they had to evade security for months. They had literally laid electrical wire beneath the field long before game day, connecting their hidden rig directly to the stadium's own electrical grid. Then they simply waited. Right in the middle of the Harvard-Yale game, immediately after a touchdown, the motor engaged. A massive puff of white smoke shot out of the ground, the turf literally split open, and the giant MIT balloon erupted from the earth, expanding until it dramatically burst right in front of thousands of bewildered fans. These MIT students weren't just pranksters. They were dedicated heist architects who showed a total, uncompromising disregard for the physical sanctity of the field.
Let's move to part 3 and see how this builds into the hidden hand theory. So, having looked at these historical case studies, we can now extract the underlying mechanics that make these acts so unbelievably successful. These are essentially the laws of forensic pranking. First off, these are never just impulsive acts. They require months of commitment, covert digging, and precise timing. They are true architectural projects. Second, the absolute secret weapon of these masterminds is subverting tradition by hijacking existing infrastructure. They don't need to invent new rituals, you know? They just use the bands, the scoreboards, and the seating charts that are already seamlessly built into the fabric of the game. And finally, they utilize the hidden hand. By manipulating the inherent logic of the stadium event, they force the participants, whether that's the groundskeepers, the security guards, or the opposing fans themselves, to unwittingly become the very engine of the prank. Now, what's really interesting about this comparison is how it brings us right back to that Boise State football trick play we started with. There is what the audience expects, you know, a standard card stunt, a mascot running across the field, or a routine pass play. And then there is the hidden reality of complete covert subversion. The magic always happens by making you look the wrong way. While you are totally mesmerized by the grandeur of the stadium, the deafening roar of the crowd, or the quarterback's eyes, the real work, the actual meticulously planned heist, is quietly unfolding just out of sight. A modern stadium is really a fortress of branding, big money, and intense tactical seriousness. But fundamentally, it remains a massive public space, which inherently makes it totally vulnerable to the absurd. So the crucial point is this. These pranks, whether it's a fake Statue of Liberty on a frozen lake or an erupting weather balloon midfield, are essentially the glitches in the system. They boldly disrupt the highly polished broadcast, they shatter the serious illusions of the game, and they constantly remind us of the chaotic, unpredictable human element that makes sports history so incredibly compelling. Which leaves us with a final, really provocative thought to consider. When you factor in the extreme planning, the infiltration of secure areas under the cover of night, and the massive logistical sophistication required to pull off things like the MIT exploding field or the Yale social engineering heists, where exactly do we draw the line? Are these acts an essential, highly creative component of sports culture that we should celebrate as brilliant displays of collegiate ingenuity? Or are they a dangerous overstep that fundamentally threatens the integrity and safety of the game itself? Take a moment to really think about that the next time you find yourself cheering in the stands, holding up a piece of colored paper, totally unaware of the hidden hands at play. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.